My husband disappeared during our 10th anniversary dinner. Not emotionally. Literally. 1 minute Daniel was cutting his steak. The next, his chair was empty, his phone was on the table, and a waiter was handing me an envelope with my name on it. Inside were 5 words, "Do not come looking for me." I stared at the note for maybe 10 seconds before laughing. Daniel loved stupid jokes. For my birthday, he once hid my gift inside 6 increasingly smaller boxes. So naturally, I assumed my husband had turned our anniversary into some ridiculous treasure hunt. Then the waiter asked if he should call the police. That was when I learned Daniel had not walked through the restaurant entrance. Security footage showed him entering the men's room hallway and never coming back. There was an emergency exit at the end of that corridor. A camera outside caught him climbing into a black SUV that had been waiting for exactly 11 minutes. I called his brother. No answer. His best friend Marcus answered immediately and went silent when I explained. Then he said something strange. "Claire, go home and lock the doors." I asked why. Marcus repeated himself. That was the moment my funny little anniversary mystery stopped being funny. I drove home expecting broken windows, masked criminals, or at minimum one dramatic man hiding behind a curtain. Nothing. The house looked normal. Our dog, Pancake, was asleep upside down on the couch with the survival instincts of a decorative pillow. Then I noticed Daniel's closet. Half his clothes were gone. His passport was gone. His old laptop was gone. But his phone, wallet, wedding ring, and car were still here. Daniel had not panicked and run away. He had packed. Carefully. My husband had planned his disappearance while asking me that morning what I wanted for dessert. I called the police. They took the report but explained that an adult was allowed to leave voluntarily. There was no evidence Daniel had been kidnapped. Technically, my husband had simply abandoned his steak, his vehicle, his wife, and a perfectly respectable tiramisu. Legally mysterious. Personally offensive. At 2 a.m, I remembered Marcus's reaction. I called again. This time he answered. I asked one question, "What do you know?" He sighed and said Daniel had made him promise never to tell me unless something happened. Something had clearly happened. Marcus agreed to meet me at sunrise. Marcus arrived carrying a metal box. He put it on my kitchen table and said Daniel had given it to him 8 years earlier. The instruction was simple. If Daniel ever disappeared without contacting Claire, give her this. I asked why he waited 12 hours. Marcus said he had been hoping Daniel was just being an idiot. Inside the box were photographs of Daniel with people I had never seen, copies of bank statements, 3 passports under different names, and a newspaper clipping from 11 years ago. The headline mentioned a warehouse fire. Under the photograph of the burned building, someone had circled one name in red ink, Daniel Mercer. There was only one problem. My husband's name was Daniel Foster. According to the clipping, Daniel Mercer had died in that warehouse fire 11 years ago. I looked at Marcus. He looked at the floor. I asked whether I had spent 10 years married to a dead man. Marcus said technically, that was complicated. Marcus finally explained. Before I met him, Daniel had worked as an accountant for a shipping company owned by a man named Victor Hale. Daniel discovered millions of dollars moving through fake companies. He copied the records. 3 days later, the warehouse containing the original documents burned down. The fire killed 2 employees. Daniel survived because he had left early. But someone added his name to the list of victims. Marcus believed Daniel used the mistake to disappear before Victor could find him. New city. New surname. New life. Then, apparently, new wife. Hello. That unfortunate woman would be me. I was furious. Not because Daniel had survived. Very supportive of that decision. I was furious because for 10 years he had complained about my habit of keeping old receipts while casually keeping an entire previous identity. Apparently my drawer full of grocery coupons was the real trust issue in our marriage. Then Marcus showed me the bank statements. Every month for 10 years, Daniel had transferred exactly $800 into an account I had never seen. I immediately assumed another woman. Marcus shook his head. The account belonged to someone named Sarah Mercer. Same last name as Daniel's old identity. I asked the obvious question. Who is Sarah? Marcus said Daniel's wife. My brain stopped processing language. I reminded him that I was Daniel's wife. Marcus corrected himself. Sarah was Daniel Mercer's wife. Before Daniel Foster existed. I sat down because apparently my marriage had just developed a prequel. Before I could decide whether to scream, cry, or throw Marcus into the recycling bin, he explained that Sarah and Daniel had separated before the fire. They had been planning a divorce. But legally, there was no divorce because legally, Daniel died first. Which meant my marriage certificate had suddenly become extremely interesting. I asked why Daniel kept sending Sarah money. Marcus said because of Emily. I asked who Emily was. Marcus closed his eyes. At that point I knew I was not going to enjoy the answer. Emily was Daniel and Sarah's daughter. She was 12 when the warehouse burned. She was 23 now. My husband had a daughter. For 10 years, I had listened to Daniel explain that he never wanted children because fatherhood was not for him. Meanwhile, fatherhood had apparently been sending monthly bank transfers from a secret account. I walked to the refrigerator, opened it, and stared inside because there were no appropriate adult responses available. Then the doorbell rang. Marcus froze. Pancake barked once, realized barking required effort, and returned to the couch. I opened the door. A young woman stood there holding a photograph of Daniel. She looked at me and asked, "Are you Claire?" I said yes. She swallowed. "My name is Emily." Emily did not call Daniel Dad. She called him Daniel. That somehow made everything sadder. She explained that she had learned he was alive only 6 months earlier. Her mother had known for years but kept the truth from her because Daniel believed anyone close to him could become a target. I asked Emily why she was at my house. She pulled out her phone. 3 hours after Daniel disappeared, she had received a message from an unknown number. It contained my address and one sentence: "If I do not contact you within 24 hours, tell Claire everything." Daniel had apparently scheduled emotional destruction in advance. Emily knew something Marcus did not. 6 months earlier, Daniel had secretly contacted her. They met twice. During their second meeting, Daniel told her someone had started asking questions about the warehouse fire again. He believed Victor Hale had discovered Daniel Mercer was still alive. My anger temporarily made room for fear. If Daniel believed someone dangerous had found him, maybe disappearing was meant to protect us. Then Emily ruined that comforting theory. She said Daniel had also told her he had finally found the missing evidence from the shipping company. Evidence worth millions to the wrong people. I asked where the evidence was. Emily did not know. Marcus did not know. Then all three of us looked around my kitchen. Daniel had spent 10 years in this house. If he trusted anyone enough to hide something near, it was probably me. Or Pancake, but Pancake had recently lost a fight with a paper bag. We searched for 2 hours. Nothing. Then I remembered Daniel's ridiculous rule about our wedding album. He always insisted it stay on the highest bookshelf because humidity could damage photographs. We lived in Arizona. Humidity was approximately a rumor. I pulled the album down. It was strangely heavy. Inside the back cover was a tiny flash drive. My romantic wedding album had apparently spent a decade moonlighting as evidence storage. We connected it to Marcus's laptop. There were hundreds of files, invoices, account numbers, names, photographs, and recordings. Then we found a folder labeled Claire. My hand shook when I opened it. There were videos Daniel had recorded over several years. In the first one, he looked directly into the camera and said, "Claire, if you are watching this, I have failed to tell you the truth myself." I nearly closed the laptop just to punish pre-recorded Daniel. Daniel explained everything Marcus had told me. Then he added something nobody knew. Victor Hale had not ordered the warehouse fire. Daniel had. I stopped breathing. Emily whispered, "What?" Daniel said he had intended to destroy empty records after copying them. He believed the building was empty. It was not. 2 employees returned unexpectedly that night. Daniel started the fire remotely and learned about their deaths the next morning. Terrified, he ran. When the newspapers mistakenly listed him among the dead, he let the world believe it. My husband had not only stolen a name from the dead, he had hidden from his own guilt. Emily stood up so quickly her chair fell backward. She had spent 11 years believing her father died as a victim. Now she learned he had caused the fire. She walked outside without speaking. I wanted to follow her, but another video file appeared beneath the first. Its date was yesterday. Yesterday's Daniel looked exhausted. He said someone had contacted him with photographs of me leaving work, Emily outside her apartment, and Marcus with his children. Whoever sent them knew everything. Daniel had decided to leave alone and draw that person away from us. Then he said something that changed the entire situation. Daniel said, "Claire, Victor Hale has been dead for 4 years." I checked. He was right. The man Daniel had feared could not have sent those photographs. So who wanted the evidence? Marcus suddenly became very quiet beside me. Too quiet. I looked at him. He slowly closed the laptop. I asked Marcus why he closed it. He said we had seen enough. I asked how he knew Daniel's old story so well. Marcus reminded me they had been friends for years. Then I remembered something Daniel once told me. He met Marcus after moving here. Marcus had claimed Daniel gave him that metal box 8 years ago. The timeline made no sense. Unless Marcus knew Daniel before Daniel became Daniel Foster. I asked him directly. His face changed. Then Emily came back inside and froze when she saw him. She whispered a name I had never heard before. "Uncle Michael?" Marcus went completely pale. Marcus was not Marcus. His real name was Michael Mercer. Daniel's older brother. Emily had last seen him when she was 9. He had changed his hair, lost weight, and used another surname. Suddenly my kitchen contained enough fake identities to qualify as a very poorly organized spy convention. Michael admitted he had followed Daniel after the fire, but he denied sending the threatening photographs. He said Daniel had hidden the financial evidence from everyone, including him. Then Emily pointed at the metal box. She recognized it. It had belonged to her mother, Sarah. Michael had lied about where he got it. Emily called her mother on speakerphone. Sarah answered. The moment Emily said Michael's name, Sarah shouted, "Get away from him." Michael stood up. I grabbed the flash drive. Pancake finally sensed danger and heroically hid underneath the dining table. Honestly, it was his strongest tactical decision all week. Sarah revealed the final piece. Michael had worked for Victor Hale too. Daniel discovered the fraud, but Michael helped create the fake companies. After the fire, Daniel took copies of records that could expose both Victor and Michael. Michael had spent 11 years pretending to be Daniel's loyal friend while searching for those files. Michael stopped pretending. He calmly asked me for the flash drive. I said no. He reminded me that Daniel had abandoned me. I told him Daniel might be a liar, a coward, technically questionable husband, and historically terrible warehouse manager, but that did not magically make Michael trustworthy. Michael stepped toward me. Then police sirens sounded outside. His expression collapsed. I smiled. While Emily had been talking to Sarah, I had quietly texted the detective who took Daniel's missing person report. For once, my unhealthy habit of texting under the table had produced measurable social value. Michael was detained while investigators reviewed the files. But Daniel was still missing. 48 hours passed. Then 72. I barely slept. I was furious with him, terrified for him, and deeply annoyed that human emotions refused to organize themselves into convenient separate folders. On the fourth morning, someone knocked on my door. I opened it and found Daniel standing there. Dirty clothes. Split lip. Exhausted eyes. Alive. I stared at him for 5 seconds. Then I slapped him. Then I hugged him. Then I slapped him again because the first slap had not covered all 10 years. Daniel had received instructions to meet someone at an abandoned motel. He expected an associate of Victor Hale. Instead, Michael appeared. Daniel escaped after realizing Michael wanted the evidence, but he stayed hidden until police confirmed Michael was in custody. His heroic disappearance sounded slightly less heroic when I remembered the stake. Then Emily walked into the room. Daniel froze. For 11 years, he had imagined this reunion. He opened his mouth, probably preparing some beautiful speech. Emily punched him in the shoulder and said, "You let me think you were dead, idiot." Daniel nodded. Honestly, it was the correct opening ceremony. Daniel eventually turned himself in for his role in the warehouse fire and cooperated fully with investigators. The evidence also exposed Michael's financial crimes. Nothing magically erased what Daniel had done. 2 people had died. He finally understood that protecting us could not mean spending the rest of his life hiding from responsibility. And our marriage? I did not dramatically forgive him because he returned with sad eyes and a tragic backstory. Real life is annoyingly resistant to movie endings. I loved Daniel, but I also discovered that legally and emotionally, I had married a man whose biography required footnotes. We separated while everything was resolved. A year later, Emily and I still had coffee every Sunday. She called me her accidental stepmother, which was technically inaccurate but emotionally hilarious. Pancake adored her because she dropped food constantly. Daniel was finally facing the consequences of the life he had hidden, and Emily was slowly deciding what kind of relationship she wanted with him. People sometimes ask whether I regret those 10 years. I do not. They were real to me, even if Daniel's name was not. But I learned that loving someone does not require rewriting what they did. You can understand why someone ran, feel compassion for their fear, and still demand that they face what they left behind. I eventually returned to the restaurant where Daniel disappeared. Same table. Same waiter. He recognized me and nervously asked whether everything had turned out okay. I thought about the fake death, secret wife, hidden daughter, criminal brother, warehouse fire, police investigation, and pancake. Then I smiled and said, "The tiramisu was excellent."